If our lives were movies, we're all the main character. Well, most of the time. Sometimes you may be a narrator, an observer, maybe even the villain or a side character, but the character nonetheless. And you follow the classic story beats, resolutions, conflicts. But what happens when the story ends and the credits roll and the story finishes, but you're still stuck as a character inside of the movie? You walk around the empty sets that once had people. You visit the places where great battles were fought, but you're there, all alone. There's no story, there's no plot. There's just you sitting there, thinking. What are you thinking about? You can remember the past to replay it, but inevitably, you're gonna be back on that field, sitting there, looking at nothing. Feel depressed yet? This is the concept of ontological insecurity. The unsettling sense that your identity in reality is unstable or evaporating. We all experience it sometimes, some more than others, and it's usually in the nighttime or in places where the context seems to be missing. Our brains are context machines. They require narrative. And the moment when the narrative disappears, it's easy to feel scared, unsure, confused. Kind of have an odd feeling of hollowness, of emptiness. The series of images I'm using is not incidental either. They might feel also, in a way, odd, confusing, kind of depressing. And the reason for this is that it's not the usual context you expect to see them. These characters, usually so animated and usually full of context, are now stripped of it or put in a place where it don't quite belong. A place that's more real. A place that doesn't have a soundtrack. A place that just is. And this is what reality is at its core. It doesn't provide you with any emotions. It doesn't tell you what to feel. It doesn't tell you how you should react. It doesn't tell you who you are. You're nothing. We're all nothing. We're all alone. We're just objects sitting there, being blown in the wind. Take this image for example. It's odd. Why is it odd? Well, the milk isn't supposed to be on the ground, and the lights in the back are not supposed to be off like that. It feels confusing. It feels scary. But we only expect it to be a certain way because our mind has created a narrative. A narrative that isn't real. You might think I'm trying to convince you in some nihilistic reality that doesn't care about you. And in fact I am. However, I also think that we shouldn't really care about it. Our minds are built to digest narrative. And so we should feed them narrative. We feed them lies. Or at least misconceptions, misrepresentations. But that's okay. That's what makes us happy. That's what makes us human. And it doesn't really matter what the world outside really is. But then again, even if you agree that it's healthy for you to view yourself as the main character and keep the narrative of your story in your head, inevitably there will be times where the narrative slows down and you're alone looking at the empty field. How do we deal with existential dread of the curtain being pulled back and realizing the cold reality of our surroundings? If your capacity for emotion and for experience was a big tank that's constantly filled with a bunch of feelings and a bunch of thoughts and a bunch of characters running around and narratives, in these moments your tank is completely empty. And you can see it. And you can feel how huge it is. How vast the emptiness inside you is. Because that's how big your capacity is to feel. This is how much you're missing. All you have to do is go to bed, wake up in the morning, and find yourself a story.